Welcome to another episode of the Coaches Main Event Marathon. I'm your host, Manpreet, and this week we're going over UFC 273, headlined by two title fights. The first of which being the main event for the featherweight title. We got Alexander Volkanovski trying to defend his strap again. Now he's going up against the Korean zombie Chan Sung-Jung. And then in the co-main event, we have a rematch for the bantamweight title with champion Aljamain Sterling taking on interim champion Petr Yan. Before we get into the good stuff, let's just swing on over to the standings and see where the coaches sit after two events now. Taking the lead last time around, we have Cody Donovan, who cashed in on Bryce Mitchell, and that now brings him to a total of $103.03. In second place, we have James Krause, who cashed on Kevin Holland at minus 250, and now he finds himself at second place, coming in at $102.50. In third place, we got my guy Santino DeFranco from Fight Ready MMA as he cashes on Rafael Dos Anjos at minus 195. Tied for fourth place, we have Marc Montoya and Eric Nicksick, who both cashed on Kevin Holland at minus 250. And then sitting at the bottom of the leaderboard, we got my guy Tyson Chartier, who whiffed on the underdog shot on Edson Barboza last time around, and now he is in the hole at $200. It's been fun so far, two events in, and I can't wait to see how the rest of this challenge unfolds between the guys. And this card filled with pretty heavy favorites at the top, and then the first two main card fights a little bit closer in odds. So I'm interested to see how these coaches will decide to continue on with the challenge and which fights they'll either be looking to take a safe bet in or maybe even take a long shot on one of the underdogs to try to make up some ground. The best part of this episode is the fact that two of the three coaches that you'll be hearing from are actually involved with the title fights this weekend. We got Santino DeFranco, who's going to be in the corner of the Korean zombie, and Eric Nicksick, who actually spent half of the training camp with Aljamain Sterling in preparation for Petr Yan. And the last coach that's going to be joining us to break down the title fights is the wise and well-respected Marc Montoya from Factory X MMA. So without further ado, let's just get into the breakdowns. Hope you guys enjoyed them. All right, returning, we got my guy Marc Montoya from Factory X Muay Thai. He is leaving to go to Jacksonville in a couple of days here to corner his guy Josh Fremda making his UFC debut, as well as his veteran Vince Pichel, who's taking on Mark Madsen as well. A couple of days out from going down to Jacksonville. Mark, how are you doing, brother?
I'm great, man. It's good to see you. I'm really looking forward to our boys going out there and performing again. Our athletes are killing it right now in the UFC, really getting after it. We've had some big finishes back-to-back, a couple bonuses with Cody Brundage and Chris Gutierrez. And, we've really had a good year so far, in 2022. So really, really looking forward to these two guys going out. They're both killers. I love that they're both on the card. That's they both have similar mindsets, even though Vince is more of a vet than Josh, but they really fight with very similar mindsets, and it's kind of kill or be killed out there with those two. And I'm really excited, man. It's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah, I can't wait for those fights. And I'm glad that you actually brought up the Gutierrez win. Big spinning back elbow knockout for him last time against Danaa Batgaril. I believe he took a performance bonus home as well that night. But there's one moment right after he got the win where he's like trying to pull you up onto the cage. It seemed like you guys had a very sentimental moment there. Do you mind sharing anything regarding that? Why it seems so important for him to like bring you up with him?
Well, number one, I want to find the sound guy that kept trying to pull my pants down when I was trying to get up on the cage. I was trying to get up on the cage with him, which is simple to do, and the sound guy wanted his mic back, like I was going to go somewhere. Where was I going? And he was literally pulling my pants down.
Wow.
As I'm trying to get up. I'm like, who is doing that? And I look back as the sound guy. I'm like, dog, get off my fucking pants here. I'm trying to get up on the cage and celebrate this moment.
I got to go back and watch that because I completely missed that. That is hilarious that happened. All I saw was a shot of like maybe torso up from you where you're trying to get up on the cage with Krista. But yeah, please go ahead.
It's probably because ESPN's like, his pants are coming down. Let's not pan any lower. I'm like, dog, I will give you the microphone, bro. I'm not going anywhere. So
you got eyes on me, dog.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So in regards to what happened with you and Chris there, like what was like, is he just very close to you? Like what was that all about? We don't usually see that from fighters, kind of bringing their coach up with them on top of the cage as well. What was he sharing with you there?
You know, Chris, he's been here almost 5 years.
Yeah.
So when he came here, he had a lot of adversity in life, and he was doing well in the cage on the regional scene, and he was having some tough adversity, and he's when I first got him, he was such a knucklehead. Like, anytime I get someone new, it's such a project,
Yeah.
and it's a good project, but it's a project. It takes a lot of work, and the moment that we were sharing on top of the cage is just the amount of progress and change that he's chose to make. And, there were days when I would be like, you want to hit my head against the wall, and I might have a couple times, right? But we were just sharing the growth and the change, and him having the ability to continue to fulfill and chase a dream, and go out there and really impress himself and beat a tough opponent. He was fighting a really tough opponent in that fight, and just going out there and believing he can do it, and then succeeding, and we talked all week about this is an opportunity for him to not only impress and win, but he could win a bonus on this guy. This guy really fits his style well, and Chris is really hard to find in the cage. Probably has some of the best range I've ever seen in my entire coaching career, as far as just how unbelievable his range management is.
I love it. It's a lot about the journey, pretty much, is kind of what you're saying as well. And I'm glad to see that as well. I love seeing that kind of coach and fighter camaraderie, and to see it on that stage after such a spectacular knockout as well. I'm trying not to get sappy over here, but it warms my heart in a sense to see that kind of stuff. So,
mine too.
Exactly. Shout out to Chris Gutierrez, and hopefully he can get that 8th fight unbeaten in a row in his next one, hopefully against the top 15 guy as well, because he absolutely deserves it. But Mark, we are here for UFC 273, and let's get into the quick standings here. You're actually tied for 4th place right now, and you came out with the dub in the last one, where you were able to cash Kevin Holland at minus 250. That netted you $40, but you're still down $60 because Blonde Brunson shit the bed for you at UFC 271. But you're hoping to make up some ground again this week. Like I said, UFC 273 headlined by 2 title fights. So let's break down the 2 title fights first. Then we'll get into your actual pick at the back end of the segment here. Kicking things off, we got the main event, featherweight strap on the line here. You got Alexander Volkanovski taking on Korean Zombie, who's stepping in on a little bit of short notice. Originally, it was supposed to be Max Holloway. They're supposed to throw down for the 3rd time. Max Holloway pulls out days after they announced the fight, but Korean Zombie gets his title shot after a win over Dan Ige, but he did lose his fight prior to that to Brian Ortega, who obviously fought Volkanovski last at UFC 266. Yeah, great fight here between 2 top guys in this weight class. Anytime Korean Zombie fights, he's more often than not providing the fireworks. And the fact that I believe it's been 6 or 7 years now that anytime Korean Zombie has fought, he's been in the main event. And it's no different for him to go out there and do it once again here against Alexander Volkanovski. So in terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 800 on Volkanovski. That implies that he wins 89% of the time. And then on the flip side for the Korean Zombie, you got plus 500, implying that he wins 17% of the time. Mark, how do you see this featherweight fight going down?
Hey, don't you think that I'm at a disadvantage given that you got Krause, Nicksick, all those guys that are just gambling fiends, dog? Like, these guys are on this line, like, going crazy. You got my old ass over here looking at odds. I'm like, I don't give a shit about these. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, you're tied with Nicksick. So, I mean, give yourself some credit.
Like, dog, I'm going to have to get in on that real action, right? Bring my boy Clint. Where is he? Look, there's my boy right there.
Yeah, there's your guy.
Bring some reinforcements. Well, number one, I think that's a fun fight. Anytime Volkanovski has fought, it's obviously a fun fight, and he's that's my wife. She's ready.
Factory X Mamacita, is that her?
Hi, sorry.
No worries, it's fine. She gets a little cameo. She deserves it.
Right back under here.
She's the one that keeps Montoya in check. It's all good. No worries.
Anytime those two fight,
Yeah.
that's going to be a fun fight. It's something that Zombie has shown to beat some really good guys. And obviously Volkanovski has been a savage, and to beat Max, I guess you can argue whether or not he beat him in one of those fights or not. But the point is to stay competitive with Max and even win those fights is remarkable. I mean, he can't take anything away from either of those guys. I think it's a little unfortunate we don't get to see that actually happen. But it's a huge jump for the Korean Zombie to go out there and be like, okay, this is my time to shine and go fight him. I think the thing is, though, Volkanovski didn't really have to change many gears to go fight Zombie preparing for Holloway. I think it's not exactly similar, but it wasn't like a major shift change where you were fighting a striker, now you're fighting a wrestler type thing. I think there's some similar game plans that you can employ against Zombie, whereas Zombie is coming in and fighting someone like Volkanovski, who he's never fought before, obviously. Volkanovski has a lot of power, and he's shown that he can be slick on his defense, and that's how essentially he stayed so close in those fights with Max. His defense was on point. Obviously, he can take a punch, and he's got good blend. And so I think Volkanovski goes out there and blends that together and has a similar game plan to how he fought Max. I mean, why would you not? Why would you shy away from that? Have a good blend of what he's done, and make Zombie have to go and really pull out a big shot. I think that's how. If Zombie's gonna pull it out, he's gonna pull out a big shot against him and hit him with something that potentially doesn't see and hurt him. That's the way I would see Zombie winning. It's tough though. And I'm not saying Zombie's not a good blender and that he can't go in and strike and wrestle and kind of do that whole combination thing. He can. But I feel like Volkanovski, with the experience he's had, especially against the multiple fights he's had with Max, being in those long fights that he's had, the experience he's had is really on his side. I like Zombie a lot. He's a great competitor. He's a really good fighter. I love watching him fight. I know when he fought Moicano, he set him up with patience and came under that jab, hit him with an overhand. Obviously, he's got power like that. So those type of things are really cool to watch, and his skill set. And so, but Volkanovski's a different fighter than like just in stature than what he's fought recently. And so I think that's going to give him some problems. And I like Zombie a lot. So like my likes of liking Zombie, I'm like, and it's not that I don't like Volkanovski. I do. I think he's an amazing fighter. But Zombie's been around for so long and has such a journey that I love that about him. And he's such a great fighter and super skilled. And so I just think the plethora of blend and weapons that Volkanovski has, I feel like he's probably going to be victorious in that fight.
Yeah, I like that assessment as well. Something that I actually found interesting just going through Korean Zombie's record. So he beat Dan Ige via decision last year. That was the first time he won a fight via decision since 2008. The guy goes out there and finishes his opponents, whether it's via knockout, whether it's the twister that he pulled out on Leonard Garcia years ago. The guy's very crafty, but he has a ton of knockout power, something that I don't think that Volkanovski has really faced a lot of since coming over to the UFC, right? During his UFC run, he's fought Mizuto Hirota, Kasuya, Shane Young, Jeremy Kennedy, Darren Elkins, Chad Mendes, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Brian Ortega. Jose Aldo being probably the heaviest hitter out of all of those guys, but that's also a diminished version of Jose Aldo, right? Something that, he hasn't really been finishing guys as of late. Do you think the knockout power of Korean Zombie will kind of throw a wrench in the plans of Volkanovski here? Because he is quite edible, at least from the tape that I've been running. What do you take from that?
I think though, when you say, yeah, I think Volkanovski is hittable, but I think when you say, if you're making that assessment based on him fighting Max makes everybody hittable. And
yeah,
so
true.
his Zombie doesn't have the same volume as Max. and his range management's a little different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's different. And the Zombie doesn't fight with that type of volume that Max fights with. And so Zombie's going to have to be more of that counter striker like he was when he fought Moicano, for example. He was very patient. That was a quick fight, so you don't get a good assessment of it. But you do get an assessment of his patience. And so you're like, okay, his patience, and then you get an assessment, of course, of his power. And he's done that a lot, like you just said. He's finished most of his fights. And he's got some, for his stature, he's got some real like rigid power. And yeah, I think he's hittable. I think though that Volkanovski is going to attack that body, right? He has to. He's got to attack some blend, make the counter punching of Zombie be thrown off a little bit, and then be the aggressor and stalk and hunt him, and not overcommit on single strikes. Volkanovski can't. And I think he's learned that a lot though against Max because of Max's volume. And so with Max's volume, he's had to learn, like, okay, I can't overthrow here because I'll get caught here. And he has against Max, right? So I think the learning lesson of that will translate against Zombie. My heart was like, okay, I want to see Zombie win this. But I think skill level wise, I think Volkanovski probably outdoes him with, just like I said already, that blend of what he can do. So he is hittable, you're right. But is he – are we saying that because of what Max is able to do? I think that's part of it.
I got it. For those in the gambling sphere, to take Volkanovski to win via decision is -150. I feel like that might be the best way to go about it rather than paying -800 on Volkanovski in the odd. But it seems like my guy Mark is picking the Volkanovski side. Even aside from odds here. So let's move on to the next one here because we got a co-main event title fight as well, a bantamweight scrap, a rematch as well, actually, of a fight that took place at UFC 259 way back in March of 2021. That was the night where Petr Yan really started to pick it up in round 2 and 3 against Aljamain Sterling. And then unfortunately through that inadvertent illegal knee, if that's what you want to call it. And then that fight was stopped via DQ. Aljamain Sterling gets the strap in a very dubious fashion, but he wants to go out there and silence the haters, right? He's been taking a lot of heat online. A lot of people kind of giving him shit for taking the easy way out. For me, from my perspective, that knee looked like it hit very flush, and he has all the right to go out there and stop fighting after that. That was a very blatant illegal knee. So if anything, Petr Yan should be taking the blame, if anything. But the odds for this time around, so last time around, it was roughly a pick of -120, I believe, for Petr Yan, +110 or something for Aljamain Sterling. Now we're getting -450 for Petr Yan, +350 the return on Aljamain Sterling, 82% implied for Yan, 22% implied for Aljamain Sterling. Now, since that fight, Yan has gone over there and defeated Corey Sandhagen back at UFC 267, where he was able to capture the interim bantamweight title, but he wants that undisputed strap, and that's going to have to be through Aljamain Sterling once again. What are your thoughts on this fight? I'm very much looking forward to it. I can't wait to see how Aljamain Sterling tries to readjust his game plan, because it clearly wasn't going his way the deeper that fight went, and if he can readjust to the point of actually going out there and getting the dub. And interestingly enough, you actually dealt with a fighter that had a back-to-back rematch. I'm not sure if you were coaching Chris Gutierrez back then, but when he fought Timur Valiev, were you coaching him at that time?
I wasn't. Actually,
You were
I
not.
coached him right after that.
So right after that, but yeah, that's almost another similar situation where you get Gutierrez going there, get the win, obviously not via DQ or anything, but he comes back in the next fight and Valiev makes the adjustments that are required, and then he gets the win. But what's your perspective in regards to this fight? Can Sterling actually change up his game plan good enough here to deal with a guy that seems almost unbeatable in Petr Yan? What are your thoughts here?
Well, I don't think Yan changes his strategy. I think he goes in and employs the very similar strategy that he always does and that he did against Aljamain. I think when he's fighting Aljo, he has just been training like he typically trains, and he goes and fights Aljo just like he did last time. The adjustment has to be on Aljo's side. Aljo, I've trained with Aljo. He's one of the best grapplers at his size that I've trained with. he can grapple his butt off. And it's no joke how good of a grappler he is. I think that's where Aljo's strength lies, is in his grappling, of course. I think the adjustment he has to make is to put that fight on the ground a lot more than he did in the first fight. Now, that's easier said than done, because Jan showed that he was able to defend those takedowns. And when you're getting hit, sometimes you get desperate on takedowns and they're not as good as they could be if you were striking into them or making him miss on angle and then finding an entry into a takedown. So Aljo has to make an adjustment to get that fight to the ground in order to actually win that fight, I think. To keep it on the feet is all just temporary fodder to find a way to get it back to the mat, and for Aljo at least. For Jan, I'm not saying Jan can't grapple, and I've never trained with Jan, so I have no idea. But from what I've seen, he can grapple too. But I'm just telling you, Aljo's one of the best grapplers I've grappled with at his size in ever. And he's just nasty that way. And he can wrestle too. That's the other thing, is Aljo can wrestle. So the wrestling, I think he has to use the striking blend. He has to use Jan's striking to expose the opening to be able to get the wrestling going and get into where his wheelhouse, which is on the game or on the ground. So that's the game he's got to play. And can he do that? Well, the last fight shows that was a little bit problematic, but with the amount of time that he's had between then and now, you know that those are the adjustments that are being made. Now, can he go execute that is the question. And so that execution of that is the hardest part, especially when you're in front of Piotr and he's throwing hammers at you and making you feel desperate on into your blend of wrestling. That's the question, is the defense shored up on the striking side for Aljo, and then is he allowing his offensive blend to capitalize in his wrestling? That would be the adjustment that if I was coaching him, he'd have to make. And because we just saw in the last fight, to just sit there and strike with him is not going to be a good move, even though it ended unfortunate with an illegal strike. It wasn't going well on the feet for Aljo. And so that's the adjustment that I think has to be made. And Aljo's a good striker. He's awkwardly good. He's long. He's really athletic. So he can utilize some of that. It's just the advantage is for Aljo's on the ground for sure. So he's got to get it to the mat. He's got to get him to the cage. He's got to slow down that offensive pursuit that Piotr has. I mean, that kid, he's nasty on the feet, and he's a good grappler too. He can defend the takedown. So I think that's the key to Aljo winning, and I think Jan doesn't change much. He keeps doing what he does and what's made him a champion, and he goes out there and just executes like he always does. And I mean, there's no thinking about that for him. And I think that's one of the advantages in that fight, is that Jan doesn't have to go think about any of that stuff, because he's executed it and done it at the highest level, and he's been a champion doing it. Can Aljo shut his brain off and just execute on muscle memory, I think, is the question to then put the fight on the ground. And so I think, though, because of that gives Jan an advantage. And I think he wants to prove that he is the undisputed champion, and he wants to go show that, I was going to win that fight, the first fight, and I'm going to prove that I'm going to win the second fight. And then Aljo has the same thing. Like, you're not giving my credit based on illegal strike. I mean, Aljo doesn't make up the rules, right? The rules are the rules.
And he wasn't even the one. He wasn't the one that threw the knee either, right? He's the one in receiving it.
Agree. So, and it's the heat of the moment. It's what happens sometimes, but the rule's the rule. He's gotten a lot of flack because people are like, "Oh, you were going to get beat." No one knows. The fight never ended. So, hopefully Aljo hasn't read a bunch of that nonsense and just enjoyed the belt for a minute and hopefully he's been slightly delusional about all the comments coming out and just, fuck these guys and go out and just go and prove to himself that he can be a champion. I mean, he's talked about, I've known him for a long time. He's talked about it for a long time. It's cool to see him in that spot, but I do feel like that the fight, the advantage is for Jan. I think you're going to see a lot of what happened in the first fight. If Aljo can't rely, if he starts overthinking, getting cracked, and then desperately wrestling, I think then that's when Jan will just go downhill on him and end up winning that type of fight. So as much as I love Aljo and I want to see him win that title, undisputedly win the title, I think the recipe of how to fix that, I'm not in his camp, so I can't tell you, but the recipe of how to fix that is going to be that Aljo doesn't think about that stuff and goes and acts on instinct and does what he's best at and gets him to the ground and has a relentless pursuit of that. And cardio can't even be a question because he's got to be able to wrestle. I don't care if it's boring as hell, but eventually if he'll get him on the ground and attack his jiu-jitsu that he's so good at, he could finish him there. But I do think the advantage does go to Jan in this fight.
From memory, to me as well, the Aljo and Jan fight was pretty much Aljo trying to strike with him as well. But when you look at the statistics, he actually went 1 of 17 on takedown attempts in that fight. But I think a lot of those, especially after that first round where he went 0 of 14 on takedowns, was kind of reactionary to what Piotr Jan was doing. And he was already getting cracked and he was already starting to feel the pressure and the power of Jan, which is why he wasn't successful with it. So I'd be interested to see if he goes out there with another grapple-heavy game plan, but trying to implement it a little bit smarter and a little bit better as well, kind of like you were alluding to. So in terms of predictions for the title fights, we're going and still with Volkanovski and you with Piotr Jan. Is that correct?
Yep.
There we go.
Those are my predictions.
All right, now let's get to the fun part of the game. Let's try to dig you out of that $60 hole that you're in right now, Mark. You got to look at the main card stuff. I'll just quickly give a disclaimer before you give your picks. We still don't know what the main card is going to look like after Gastelum and Duplessis fell out a couple days ago. I am assuming that they're going to plug in Alexei Oleinik into the main card. They love Oleinik. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the one they actually end up putting him in there with, where he's going up against Jared Vanderaa. So my guy Mark has to choose from the 2 title fights: Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns, Tisha Torres, Mackenzie Dern, and then Oleinik and Vanderaa. Who are you going to go with to dig you out of this hole, my friend?
This is the hardest part for me. I could break down fights for you all day. This is the hard. Now you're asking me to put money on the line. I'm like, oh, shit, I don't know about that. I risk my paycheck every weekend, bro. Every weekend I risk my paycheck, right? This is what I want to talk about real quick.
Yeah, let's go.
Burns and Chimaev. Okay. This line is minus 560 for Chimaev and Gilbert Burns plus 410.
Yeah.
I'm a little torn about this fight because I could come out of the hole like a monster right now if I take the underdog here in Burns. One of the things is I'm not taking anything away from Chimaev because he's come out here and he believes. That's the one thing. I'm not saying he doesn't have the skill set. He does, obviously. But he believes. The thing is, though, is Burns is such an accomplished fighter, and his ground game is nasty. So I'm a little bit surprised of what the gap that we have in this line right here. I'm not saying that I would be surprised that Chimaev is the favorite, but man, minus 560 plus 410. Those are some.
In terms of implied odds, we're talking 85% of the time Chimaev wins this fight, and then 20%. Again, there's obviously a little bit of discrepancy with the numbers there. That's how the bookies end up making their money. That's why it's 105% rather than 100%. But yeah, they're only saying that Burns wins this fight 20% of the time. That's crazy.
And I feel like the other 2 fights that we're talking about with Mackenzie Dern, Tisha, and then Oleinik, and Jared. We have those fights right now because of the main card not being where it's supposed. We don't have a
I know for
solidified
sure
yet.
Dern and Torres is going to be on the main card. That's for sure. It's just the last one that we still have questions about.
So, do I go for the gamble here? Like gamble? Do I do that with Burns and put it on my boy and be like, okay, big dog, let's go here. Yeah, we got $410 to win here.
That'll put you at a pretty
everyone's gonna look
$350
at me
of profit.
sideways and be like, "You're betting against Chimaev? What are you freaking crazy?" But man, the dude's fought for a title.
Yeah,
and he's such an accomplished grappler. My only issue with Burns is, does he have the gas tank to if some of this stuff doesn't happen, can he sustain the gas tank to still be the savage that he is? That's my only question. Because if Chimaev just takes him down, gets on top of him, and you're getting beat up a little bit there, that takes some of the gas away. So, that's where I kind of second guess. The other one is Jan and Sterling, and then we got Korean Zombie and Volkanovski. So,
remember, we got eight more events that we're doing after this one. So even if you do take a shot on Burns here, you still have 8 events that you can still try to scrape yourself out of a $160 hole if Burns doesn't get it done. Or you get the value here, Burns pulls it off, and you're skyrocketing to the top because I don't know how many people are going to be lining up to be betting the underdogs out of the other 5 coaches that we have on this show.
No one's picking Burns out of the other 5 coaches. They're scared,
you never know. You never know.
Huh?
You never know.
But I mean, there's a risk there for sure.
Yeah.
There's a big reward too at the other end of the rainbow there, right? My head says like go with one of the even numbers over here, right? and just chip my way back to the top. My heart's like, come on, dog, swing for the fences and go.
Don't be a bitch, Mark.
go Burns and get this shit done, right?
Which one are you gonna let win? You gonna let the brain or the heart win?
I mean,
what would Clint Eastwood do?
Yeah, what would Clint do? Clint, what would you do? Here's the microphone. Look, the mic's to Clint's mouth. Bro, Clint doesn't talk. That's the problem. If he's fucking talk, I'd be fine over here. I'd have the all the plans to the rest of the world.
You'd be number one.
Exactly. I'd be number one. All right, let's see. What do I do here? Well, I think what we do is we go with Burns. Let's do it.
All right, my guy Marc Montoya
my DMs
is sacking up.
Full, dog. My DMs are gonna be full. I'm like, Coach, you lost your freaking mind. What are you doing?
That's why this is gambling and not just picking straight up winners. We're trying to find some value at times, and this line is completely off. I completely agree with you. Personally, I'm picking Chimaev myself, but I think Burns could potentially get it done as well. And you might be finding yourself in the number 1 spot come Sunday morning, Mark. I'm
putting the flex emoji if he pulls it off. I'm putting the flex emoji and I'm throwing that shit out there. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go in my hole and be like,
I ain't even here, dog. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
I love it, Mark. I love it. I love you sacking up and taking the big dog here. Because again, you're in a bit of a hole. You might as well dig yourself out of it. And when you get a top 5 guy like Gilbert Burns at plus 400 odds, you can't be mad at taking a shot on a guy like that, especially against Chimaev, who hasn't proven himself against a legitimate opponent yet. Again, no shade at Li Jingliang, no shade at Gerald Meerschaert or any of those guys, but this is Gilbert Burns, who just fought for a title a couple fights ago and is still at the top of his game. Let's find out. You may look like a genius come Sunday morning, like I said, Mark. So we'll see how.
And listen, I'm going to tell your fans right now, when we get off air, your boy over here is going to be telling me, you're freaking crazy for taking that fight. Are you crazy? And I'm going to be like, calm down, dog. Calm down. You're making me second guess all my shit again.
Oh, I love it. I love it, Mark. That's why I try not to sway you guys before we record. I'd rather you guys make your picks and then I'll slander you guys after the fact. I love it. I love it. Well, Mark, again, I appreciate you taking out the time to do the show every other month. Honestly, it's awesome to talk to you, to chop it up. I feel like we're getting a little bit of a friendship here now as well. I very much appreciate all the insight that you share with me. And again, good luck to your guys this weekend, man. Fremd making his UFC debut and Pichel trying to give a veteran lesson to Mark Madsen there. I can't wait to see that go down. Any parting words you got for the guys here?
No, man, just appreciate your time. Thank you. Killing it. Keep doing a great job. Appreciate the fan interaction. Some of your guys some of your fans have reached out to me and been really cool. So it's cool to do that, and it's fun being on here. Thanks for creating this, and hopefully my boy right here. Hopefully we're good here. Then we got champion status after we win this fight this weekend. That's full on champion status. We're not inching our way up. We're swinging for the freaking fences. Here we go.
I love it. Mark bringing the heat. Good luck to him. And appreciate you coming on. We'll see you again in 2 months when we break down UFC 275. I believe that's going to be going down in June. Good luck this weekend, Mark.
All right, bro. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And we are back with my guy, Santino DeFranco, and I'm very intrigued to have him on the show this week as he will be in the corner of the challenger in the main event. He'll be in the corner of Korean Zombie. Very much looking forward to seeing how he tackles that fight, and I can't wait for him to share his insight for that fight on this card, on this specific show. But first and foremost, Santino, how are you doing, brother? I know you just got into Jacksonville. How are you feeling?
I'm good, man. Well, actually, I say I'm good. As a human, I'm good. But I just got into Jacksonville. And we had this is probably the worst flight that I've taken in probably the last 5 years. And not like turbulence. I don't care about flying and turbulence and going to my desk. None of that matters. I was in the very back row on the I swear, like the seats, like the further back.
They get narrower?
Tinier. Yes. And I'm sitting between a behemoth to my left who did not even care. And I was in the middle seat. Like, so there's no way of getting around this. Just a blob all over me, and I'm trying to like move, and she just did not care. She was like, nope, I'm all over you, I don't care. And then I would put my arm like up and over, and she's like, I'm good with that. Like, she didn't even care, didn't even try. And then the guy to my right smelled like he had forgotten to take a bath for the last I don't know, course of his lifetime. So and it was tiny. Got off the plane, so anyway, I lived through it.
How long is that flight? How long was that flight?
Well, we had to go Phoenix to Chicago, so that was 3 hours.
And
then that was the leg. And then actually on the Chicago to Jacksonville flight, it was fine. It was 2 seats on each side, and it wasn't bad. But that first flight, oh my God! Like, I thought, this is it. If the plane doesn't crash, I'm jumping out.
At least you got some like an airbag on your right side in case the plane does.
Yeah, it was one of the worst ones I've had in a minute.
So some real trials and tribulations to try to get Zombie a title, right? So like you might as well go through it.
We got here to the hotel, and they didn't have us a hotel room. They had us normally coming in. Yes, so we were supposed to come in tomorrow. Standard Tuesday fight week stuff. We left a day early, and so they didn't have us checking in today. They had us checking in tomorrow, so that was an ordeal as well. So it was
real trials and tribulations that you're going through right now. Like I said, all in hopes of securing that gold this weekend, which will all make it worth it. So I'm sure you're pretty much dead set on just focusing on the fights at this point. Yeah,
absolutely. Fights, and then
weight cut and fights. Sorry.
Weight cut, fights, and seeing what kind of food I can eat on the in between.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, so leading up to this is going to be the third episode of the Coach's Main Event Marathon. You whiffed on the first event, which was UFC 271, where Derek Lewis got knocked out by.
You don't have to put it like that.
Is what it is. But
hey, have to put it like
you bounced back in the second one. You cashed -195 on Rafael Dos Anjos over Renato Moicano. That was a beautiful pick. That was the second best odds out of all the coaches that got their selection right. But -195 is a really good hit on you there, and you actually find yourself in third place right now. So you're right behind Mr. James Krause, which are hoping to make some, make a little bit of a dent in that lead that he has over you at this moment. But it's getting hot and heavy in that top 3, top 4, and I know that that you guys are looking to get another dub this weekend. Santino, we're here to talk about UFC 273. And like I said, you are involved in the main event here, which is the featherweight title between Alexander Volkanovski and the Korean zombie Chan Sung-jung. In terms of odds, we currently have minus 800 on the champion side, 89% implied that he wins this fight. And then on the flip side, you got plus 500 on the Korean zombie, which means he only wins 17% of the time. Now, this is, based on what the odds think. But this is where I bring in the pros like you guys to help us break this down and tell me why that 17% is completely inaccurate. But please, without showing your hand, obviously, in terms of what you guys are planning on doing in this fight, break down this fight. And I'm assuming your prediction is going to be zombie at the end of this, right? But how do you see this one going down?
Well, you'd hope I'd be thinking zombie wins it. But even before we get to that, I mean, just because even more besides talking about breaking down fights, we're breaking down bets. There's some crazy odds on this card. Hamza and Gilbert Burns is a huge spread. I think Peter Yan and Aljo is probably accurately reflects what I think. That's probably a little bit of a larger spread than I would expect, but it's still a little bit big. And then of course the zombie fight is a huge spread. So just the odds in general, they're really big. Now there's a possibility that Zombie got this fight like 6 months ago, and I forget the details. Maybe Ortega, they thought he might have been hurt or what. And we were kind of scrambling and we were lobbying for the fight. And I liked this fight. Honestly, out of the top 5, I liked this matchup with Volk more than I like any other matchup. And then for the title, I think that's honestly even better. I just individually, specifically like this Volk matchup. So I'm really happy about it. Now, of course, without giving too much of my hand, the real thing comes with standing. It comes down to Volkanovski's leg kicks and movement versus Zombie's power, and how do those things match up? We've seen Volk get clipped a little bit and dropped by Max a couple times. He's gotten rocked a little bit. We know that. I mean, I am not even remotely implying that he's chinny at all, but there are. If anything, that has been the slightest of weaknesses that we've seen him kind of get rocked a couple of times, and he recovers well. So I don't even remotely mean to imply that, but he moves. He's not a guy who's going to stand in the pocket and go toe to toe and try and slug it out. He's a guy who's going to touch and move, and he uses leg kicks. We saw that with Max. We saw that with Brian. And that's a stylistic stand-up matchup. And then on the grappling side, he loves his double leg. He loves his body lock. Really to go to an inside trip. And then beyond that, but even more so than the inside trip, he does a really good job of controlling people on the cage. And, we saw that especially with Aldo. He was moving with Aldo quite a bit on the outside. And then, of course, we saw him really start pressing the cage grappling, the cage presence. And he's really busy on the cage, too. So, can Zombie get off the cage? Can he not? Can Volkanovski control him on the cage? Can Zombie maintain his movement? And then Zombie's jiu-jitsu. I mean, Zombie is just in his last fight with Ige, he showed some really good offensive wrestling, some really good jiu-jitsu too. So it's a powerful, physical, I wouldn't say natural wrestler, but somebody who has learned to wrestle effectively in the cage versus a savvy, crafty movement guy with jiu-jitsu and submissions. I mean, Zombie, I think, had the first twister in the UFC. So, stylistically, these guys both strike and they both grapple really well. Neither of them have cardio problems, and we're going to see kind of for as well-rounded as they both are, there's definitely a clash of styles within each of their respective fields.
Yeah, no, I think the one thing that you really hit on is the hitability of Volkanovski. I think that's going to be very, it's going to be a glaring flaw for him, especially in this fight, especially going up against a power puncher like Korean Zombie. So, I know a lot of people like the Volkanovski via decision, which is about minus 150. But even if you're oversaturated on the Volkanovski, throwing him into parlays, which I would not advise at all in this situation, because it does nothing for your parlay in terms of adding value, and 2, this fight is much closer than the minus 800 indicates. But even Korean Zombie to win inside the distance is currently sitting around plus 1,000, which I think is crazy considering his finishing ability, right? His last win against Dan Ige was his first decision victory in since 2008. All he ever does is go out there and take heads or get submissions or something, right? The guy is a big, heavy power puncher, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how you guys can try to implement that to the best of its abilities, right? He has power, and Volkanovski can be hit. Is there anything you can add to that?
Well, yeah, I'm surprised at the odds just because, of course, Zombie finishes most fighters. All right. We know that that's how he wins. But he also did 5 rounds out wrestling, out grappling Ige, who's, a good wrestler, not a world beater wrestler. I mean, I kind of called it before that. People are like, well, how is he going to deal with his wrestling? I said, he is absolutely going to murder him wrestling. Like, this is not in a straight wrestling match. Zombie's going to be Ige today, and I kind of knew that going in. People just didn't know how good his wrestling was. But he went 5 rounds. His cardio was good. He was grappling for 5 rounds. He was jiu-jitsu and wrestling. So I'm really shocked. Volk's the champ. Of course, Volk is the champ. Of course, he's going to be the favorite. But the spread is actually a little shocking that it's that big of a spread, especially considering just odds makers in general really like people who finish fights, which is generally Zombies. So it's I expected Volk to be a favorite, but as big of a favorite is kind of just shocking to me.
2 last things about this matchup, then we'll move on to the co-main event. Who's going to be in the corner for Zombie here? You got Eddie Cha. Who's the 3rd and 4th, if you guys have?
Yeah, we do, and those are some of his guys who he brought from Korea.
Okay, perfect. And secondly, everybody wants to know this because he is probably the most polarizing guy at the gym that you guys are at, Mr. Henry Cejudo. How much of an impact on this training camp has he had, if any at all?
Huge impact. Henry has been so great with this camp. He has been involved. One of Zombie's main training partners for this camp was Henry, doing a lot of simulation rounds, a lot of the lighter rounds. I mean, they're different weights, of course, so they're not going as hard as they can. But Henry has been involved with a lot of simulation rounds, a lot of light sparring, wrestling, trying to simulate Volkanovski and Volkanovski's movement, as well as simulating and implementing the wrestling too. So honestly, Henry has been great. He's been very involved in the camp from start to finish.
Love to hear it. All right. We know the prediction is going to be the Zombie, so I'm not even going to ask you that question. So let's keep this.
Of course it is.
Let's keep
it is.
Sorry, if there is a specific prediction you can give, maybe that's something that the viewers will want to know. Do you have a round method or anything that kind of comes to mind? I get it. MMA is a crazy sport. Any outcome can happen, but is there one that you kind of foresee in your head right now?
Zombie KO round 2 or 3.
Love it. Love the conviction as well. Not even any hesitation either. I love to hear it, Santino. All right, let's move on to the co-main event where we can have you talk a little bit more freely about how you feel about these fighters. We got Petr Yan taking on Aljamain Sterling. Obviously, this is a rematch of the fight that was ended in a very dubious fashion, allowing Aljamain Sterling to be the bantamweight champion. In terms of odds, we got minus 450 on Petr Yan, plus 350 the return on Aljamain Sterling. How do you see this one going down, Santino? Very interesting fight.
I can't, first of all, I just can't wait. I think it's definitely going to be, I want to say a closer fight, but was it round 3 that the illegal knee happened?
Round 4.
2?
Round 4.
It wasn't round 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you look, Aljamain was doing really well in round 1, and he went out like a bat out of hell. And it definitely looked like there was a lot of adrenaline going on. He went out hard in round 1, and he looked really good. Landing strikes all over the place. Just fast, dynamic, looked amazing. Looked pretty good, if I remember. It's been a little while since I watched the fight. In the first half of round 2, and then Petr Yan really started to take over. And I want to say when I first watched this fight, man, if adrenaline didn't get Aljo, I think he have kept that up, because he looked really good in round 1. If you watch just round 1, Aljo's a world beater. And if you just remember that, and then of course he slides out, and you think, okay, adrenaline got him, cardio got him, this and this and that, Petr Yan came on. But if you watch every Petr Yan fight ever, it looks like Aljo, Petr Yan, round 1. Petr Yan, he's not even fighting the first 3, 4, 5 minutes of a fight. That dude, you could throw everything at him with 2 kitchen sinks, and he's just calculating. That freaking processor is crunching and crunching and crunching and crunching. And then you see him just analyzing. He is just picking up tendencies and tendencies and tendencies. And then you start to see it a little bit in round 2. He starts coming. Honestly, Jimmy Rivera was a great fight.
Yeah.
I thought Rivera was winning every round until Petr Yan just had his way with him in the last, again, it's been a little while, so don't scream at me, internet world. minute to minute and a half.
So the first 2 rounds, Jimmy Rivera was winning the first 4.5 minutes, and then he gets clipped right at the ending of the first and second round, which sway it back to Jan's round. But yeah, no, that was I absolutely agree. Continue, please.
And then of course we saw him come on a little bit more in the third round. Yeah. That is Peter Yan. He is just so calculated. He's durable. He's so phenomenal everywhere. He is just waiting for the right moment, and that's what happens. I mean, he is so calculated. He shells up so well. He takes so little damage. His wrestling is stupid good. For how you do not see people who have that good of wrestling and that good of two things. You see somebody who's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu guy, but they don't have the wrestling or they don't have the striking, or you see one or the other. You do not see somebody who is that amazing at both wrestling and striking. I can't remember anybody. I mean, even like a John Jones, who was so dominant. Mm-hmm. He was very stylistic. He was very long. He used what he used very well, but he was not a traditional striker. And when he had these taller opponents in front of him, he had a harder time. Peter Yan, man, shorter, taller, kickboxer, boxer, fast, slow, it doesn't matter. Striking, wrestling. I think Peter Yan wins this. And, I like Aljo. I like his whole camp. I love those guys. I think Peter Yan is one of the best in the sport right now.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to stop a guy like Peter Yan, who seems to get stronger, especially in 5-round fights. You might have a chance in 3-round fights, right? The scoring in their last fight actually had Peter Yan up 2-1 on 2 judges' scorecards, but one judge actually had it 2-1 for Aljamain Sterling, but unanimously they gave him the second round. But that's where Peter Yan starts making his reads. That's when he starts taking over. I thought if anybody was going to beat him, it would be Corey Sandhagen, but Sandhagen couldn't even do anything to him either after that first round. So, safe to say your prediction here is going to be Peter Yan?
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up that Corey Sandhagen thing, because I am big on Corey Sandhagen. And I was screaming from the rooftops, Corey Sandhagen is going to light him up standing. And honestly, the first, I don't know, maybe 7 minutes, it was exactly how I called it, ripping body shots, moving, high knees. Yan is shorter. And I was so impressed with myself. Holy hell, was I freaking Nostradamus. And then Peter Yan figured it out, and he went on and on and on. And I mean, Sandhagen had his moments after that, but that was Jan's fight after 6 or 7 minutes in. And I was like, holy shit, he is as good as they said he is.
It's Anderson Silva-esque, right? Remember, like him in his heyday, he would take like a round to sort of download the information, and then he would just chew you up. And that's exactly what Peter Yan is doing nowadays as well. All right. So we got Zombie in the main event for my guy Santino. We got Peter Yan and you in the co-main event. So he's going and you times 2 for obvious reasons. Now comes the fun part of the show, the competition. So you actually revealed to me minutes before we got on here that the main card is now set, and your second fighter that you're actually there to corner, Mark Madsen, is going to be getting the main card spot here against Vince Pichel. So you have those 5 fights to choose from. The main card, which one are you going to be going with for your competition pick?
I'm going with Zombie. Zombie. It's plus 500. No way around it. Like, to the rooftops. Let's go.
There you go. Plus 500 would pretty much put you in first place as long as there's no other coach that is on him. Actually, you know what? Now that you already made your pick, there is another coach that is on him, and I believe it is Mr. Cody Donovan, who's actually in first place right now. So he's going with the Korean Zombie. So he might be a little bit ahead of you, but if at least that will bring you into second place.
Well, if it comes down to Cody being right and getting it right, I'm okay giving up that first place spot if it means Zombie gets that title.
I'm sure the gold matters more than this dinky old show that you're doing
I'm hoping that Cody Donovan wins this coach's challenge right now.
All right, there you go. I'll be sure to pass along the message to him, and hopefully he brings a smile to his face. All right, Santino, any parting words here you want to say to the fans, to the viewers, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great fight coming up. We're in Jacksonville. It's a lot of fun. Great card. Good bets on the card all around. So can't wait for it. And good luck to all the coaches, and really just good luck to me and Mark Madsen and Zombie.
I love it. And Eddie Cha. We can't forget about a guy, Eddie Cha.
Of course, obviously. The whole team.
Of
course, Eddie Cha. We've got Dan Moret down here with us, Eddie Cha. We've got
Shout out to
Zombie's
Hitman
crew. Yeah, we've got Zombie, a bunch of, I am unfamiliar with Korean pop culture, but there are a bunch of like celebrities and musicians and actors coming in town for a zombie for that. I don't know who any of them are because I don't even know American pop culture that well, let alone Korean pop culture that well. But Eddie assures me there's a lot of cool people coming.
I love it. Korean Zombie has been a draw since 2012. That was the first time he main evented a UFC card. Before that was his fight against Mark Hominick, where he knocked him out in 7 seconds, I think it was. But that was the last time he didn't have a main event fight. He's had 8 straight main event fights. This will be his 9th straight, and hopefully allows him to go out there and get that gold as well. Because I'm sure, even if you have money on Volkanovski this weekend, the fan in you is cheering for a Korean Zombie. It would be amazing to see him have that gold wrap around his waist at the end of this night. Go ahead, my brother.
I got one more thing. So these might be the 2 best walkout songs in title fight history, too.
Wait, what does Volkanovski come out to?
He comes out to a Land Down Under.
Ooh.
From gosh, who is that? Eddie, who's Land Down Under? What is his minute?
Men at Work. Men at Work.
Men at Work. It's Men at Work. Yeah. So
there you go.
So Zombie comes out to Cranberries, Zombie, of course, and then
I love it.
Volt comes out to Men at Work, the Land Down Under. So you just some fun walkouts here. So
I wish I was in Jacksonville to take it in, my man.
Great fight, great walkout. So can't wait for either.
Awesome. Again, appreciate you taking the time, Santino, especially on this busy fight week that you got going on and that hectic fight schedule that you had to deal with. Appreciate it. And good luck on Zombie this weekend. Good luck on Madsen as well. And hopefully you can find yourself in that number 2 spot, obviously behind Cody Donovan, come Sunday morning. Appreciate the love as always, man.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thanks.
And we are back with my guy, Eric Nicksick from Extreme Couture. Eric, how's it going, my brother?
Doing well, just on the grind. So it's staying busy out here right now.
Absolutely. I saw the IG story you posted the other night with at Francis's place with the money shooter. I know he's getting a little crazy over there, isn't he?
he's getting kind of stuck in the house and nothing else going on. And, so myself and a few of the guys, like we'll take shifts and we'll run over there to check in on him or bring him stuff. And, he's got a lot of that rehab stuff. I think he's got the game changer or game breaker. I can't remember, but it's like an ice thing for his knee. So he's always got to get ice and he can't drive yet. So he's been Ubering everywhere. So we're all kind of taking shifts to run over to the house and check in on him, take care of him and, make sure he's doing okay.
It's hilarious watching your IG stories with him as well, especially when I think you picked him up from the airport, if I'm not mistaken, and he's like just lugging in that backseat, barely fitting into the car.
Yeah, man, I got a tiny Kia Stinger, and I had to take him to his doctor's appointment. So
that's what
he went in to go get some more imaging done on his leg. So I had to take him down there, and then I took him to the PI and got lunch. So we were just hanging out and stuff. But moreover, man, like if we're around each other, we keep the mood light. I just feel bad for him because he's stuck in the house all the time. So. Yeah. It's he's your teammate no matter what, whether you're in a fight camp or not. We got to take care of one another. So,
last question regarding him, and then we'll get to the matters at hand. Is there a return time frame for him at all? I know he's in the rehab mode, but is there a time frame that you guys are kind of aiming for with him?
No, nothing really at the moment, and that's just going to be kind of dependent on how his recovery process goes. And we had a good meeting with Dana and Hunter right after the fight before the surgery. And, Dana was just adamant about, hey, take your time, bro. Like, we're no rush. We're always going to be here. So I really, for me personally, like I took a lot away from that meeting and I thought we left on good terms and I'm looking forward to see what happens with these guys in the future.
Yeah, especially with everything that was going on in the media with them and all that. It's good to know that they're kind of in good standing, and hopefully we'll continue to see him perform inside the octagon where we want to see him perform. All right.
For sure.
Last time around, it was UFC 272, and you cashed a nice ticket there on Kevin Holland minus 250. He went out there and did the damn thing against Cowboy Oliveira. What did you take from that performance, if anything at all?
For me, like a little bit of insider information. Obviously, like Kevin comes out and trains with me and understood what he was doing in the camp, and he was bringing on Bob Perez and just kind of listening to what he wanted to do. And then of course for me, like when you hear that, you want to keep him in line with the same game plan. It's not like we're gonna show you this. Yeah. So when he comes into town, I ask him, hey, what's the game plan? What are you guys working on? And see where the areas that you can help add to what already he's doing. And I loved what those guys had going on. I love the game plan. And, man, I think 170 is a great division for him. It's more natural for him. And to be quite fair, I think he's going to be moving up those rankings pretty fast.
Yeah, he has a name value. He has a star power. It's just a matter of getting it done inside the cage. And I'm sure we're going to see him getting those top 15, top 10 cracks, and hopefully, maybe make a title run as well, because he could definitely do that as well. All right. So you did cash on him last time. That puts you in fourth place, tied in fourth place right now with with Marc Montoya, who I believe also cashed on Kevin Holland that night. But we're hoping that you're going to make some steam later on in this segment here. Obviously, I'm going to ask you who you're going to be picking on the main card. But first business up is talking about the two big fights that we have, the two title fights for UFC 273. Kicking things off, we have the main event between Alexander Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie. This is obviously for the featherweight title. In terms of odds, we got minus 800 on Alexander the Great Volkanovski and plus 500 the return on Chan Sung Jung. How do you see this fight going down stylistically, and who do you think ends up getting their hand raised?
I just love what Volkanovski's been doing with his situational awareness, his fight IQ, just getting better and better every time out. It's something for me as a coach that has a champion on my roster where it's like, how can I evolve and improve? And what I see out of Volkanovski is every time out, he's showing a new wrinkle. He's getting better in different areas. And the last fight for me with Ortega, I just saw grittiness and guts from this guy. And I mean, God, he's got to have gills or something, because for him to fight out of some of those submissions and what he did, I was always been impressed with Volkanovski. But to me, when to see him break through some little adversity and then come out and do what he did, I was blown away, man. I was super, super impressed with him. So, and then, of course, I just cornered against Korean Zombie against Dan Ige when he fought Dan. And that was another guy where I was very impressed with the Zombie and the fact that he got away from the brawl. He didn't try to turn it into like a firefight. And that's kind of what we were hoping for. We wanted Dan to get in a little firefight with him because we thought our guy would have been the one to clip him. And he came out and fought smart. He fought very, very smart in that fight. So, I think a lot of that credit needs to go to the guys over at Fight Ready and what Eddie Chaw's doing with them, and Santino and those guys. So to me, I'm with you. This line is just way too wide. I think there's a lot of disrespect when you're talking about the Zombie. But for me, I would lean towards Volkanovski and getting that decision win. I think just what he's showing and feet to the floor and getting things done and doing it smartly and not getting hit. I think the one way that Zombie has to win this fight is he's going to have to put Volkanovski out. He's going to have to catch him. Can he do that? Absolutely. But I don't see Volkanovski putting himself in a position to be getting clipped.
Yeah, I find it interesting because when we talk about certain champions and certain guys that are getting the job done, Francis Ngannou, most importantly, like obviously you can relate to him. We know he has that big nuclear power that he can just pretty much end anybody's night with. But the fact that he has the wrestling, like he showcased in his last fight, to go into that those deep pockets and actually get that pulled out. With Volkanovski, it's very difficult to actually pinpoint one specific part of his game that he has like a Francis Ngannou type knockout level type thing, if you know what I'm trying to say, right? He's not this crazy knockout puncher. He's not this crazy jiu-jitsu wizard, but he knows how to put everything together. And it almost seems like his fight IQ and his ability to blend everything together is why he is as great as he is to this point in time, right? 20 fight winning streak, absolutely insane. And obviously the public is putting a lot of love on him, making him a minus 800 favorite. Is there something specific in his game that you see that you're like, oh, this is why he's great?
I wouldn't say necessarily anything specific as far as the offensive side goes, but I don't see a lot of holes in his game when it comes to the defensive side of things. Like if you're trying to put a game plan together for the guy, it's like, okay, where's the chink in the armor? Is it his takedown defense? Is it his submission game? What is it? Is it striking? And it's very, very difficult to find, especially when you get a guy like when you look at the upper echelon of the featherweight division, you're talking 1A and 1B with Max Holloway and Volk. So you're like, okay, well, let's see if a guy can get on the volume striking with him, right? And that's Max, and Max is going to put a pace on him. Now you can argue about the second fight, of course, but and who won and lost that fight. But Volkanovski hung right there and got the win out of the way. He scored his takedowns when he needed to. He did all the right little things. And that's what to me is so important about when you talk about that veteran, that fight IQ, is he understands when to seal up his rounds. So if a round's real close, he finds a way to sway that round to his direction. Maybe it's a nice takedown. Maybe it's something to get the crowd going, and I see that from him. And for me, like as a coach, I'll watch and try to observe and understand how to implement that with some of our fighters.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the co-main event slot. Obviously, you're taking Volkanovski in the main event there, but let's move on to the co-main event slot. And I was very excited to have you on for this specific episode of this show that we're doing because of your involvement with Aljamain Sterling. It's, no secret he's been splitting time between your training camp over there in Extreme Couture and then obviously back home with the Sarah Longo Weidman team that he has over there. Without, kind of showing your hand too much here, sorry, let me just set this up with the actual odds. In terms of odds, we got minus 450 for Petr Yan, 82% implied that he wins this fight, and then plus 350 on the Aljamain Sterling side. When they were first scheduled to fight each other, it was pretty much a pick 'em fight, right? You can go to some bookies and you can get minus 120 on Aljamain Sterling, and then on other bookies you can get the flip side as well. So again, without showing your hand too much in this, what are you kind of expecting from this fight? What kind of adjustments do you think that Aljamain can make to have a better outcome? And obviously I'm not going to ask for your prediction. I'm assuming it's going to be Aljamain Sterling, but I'm still interested in your analysis regarding this fight.
Well, I think you kind of have to make adjustments to the adjustments. And what I mean by that is okay, let's start with Petr Yan. He now has an idea or an understanding of what it was like to be in the cage with Aljamain. He understands his power. He understands his movement. Does he respect his takedown defense and all these things? No, Piotr's typically been a kind of a slow starter, eased his way into fights because he does such a great job of collecting data and getting his reads. Now, is this a continuation between the first fight? And what I mean by that is he going to take that information that he's collected in the first fight and carry it over in the second fight and try to start a little faster, right? Now, we look to try to prepare for those things with Aljo. Now, when you look at Aljo's side, now we kind of hit the gas pedal a little too hard in the first round, and that's where you started seeing the taper. But I was very happy with what he did in the first round, right? And I think just keeping him kind of on that same level, but slowed down just a little bit, I think it's going to really help him with his efficiency going into rounds 2 and 3. They're talking about a 5-round fight. So if you can bank 3 rounds, right, and get into 4 and 5 up 3 rounds, right, we really can you can kind of burn clock if you can get into your wrestling and do some things. So for me, I think there's going to be a lot of gamemanship from both sides. Aljo had the neck injury in the first fight. I think there was a lot of things that hampered him with that. So now he's fully healthy. I'm excited to see a fully healthy Aljamain get in there and get after this guy a little bit. So again, man, this is going to be a barn burner. I think the line is just a little wide when you think about, Aljo was up two rounds on one scorecard and he was down, 2-1 on another. The fight was going Petr Yan's way when the knee landed, right? We can all agree with that.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a little bit of a, kind of a recency bias and Yan going out there and doing what he did against Corey Sandhagen. But we also know what Aljo did against Corey Sandhagen. So I think the line's a little wide for my liking and a little bit of disrespect towards Aljo. But Aljo's the one that has to come in there and he's got a lot to prove in this fight. And I think he's going to be able to get it done.
You know what I think it honestly is, Eric? It's the MMA fan base and the guys that are putting their money out there. And we know the jokes and all that stuff that's going around about Aljo. I like the way he's kind of been handling it. Like sometimes he steers into it, sometimes he doesn't. It is what it is. I'm glad that he seems to be mentally all there and confident in his own skill set. I think that's what's driving the line, right? I think people just think that Sterling is not as good as anybody makes him out to be. Personally, I think it's 1A and 1B, like you were saying about Volkanovski and Holloway at featherweight. At bantamweight, it's 1A Petr Yan, 1B Aljamain Sterling, and we obviously saw how he dispatched of Corey Sandhagen, like you were saying as well. Were you involved with the first training camp? I can't recall that.
Yeah, so I was here for the first training camp. I was actually more involved in the first camp. This camp I did the first 6 weeks, and then Aljo went back and did the last 6 weeks back at home. And then all we did now is he'll send me out all of his sparring footage. I'll review his footage, and him and I will FaceTime or talk and just go over things. But this fight in particular, Chris Curtis was on the card, and I was going to be in Jacksonville with Chris Curtis. I would help Aljamain when I was out there. Now, Chris got injured, and then because of Chris's injury, I got so much stuff going on out here. I called Aljo, and we just decided, hey, it's probably better off for me just to hang back and help the guys at home. He's in great hands. So, but if I'm physically in his corner or not, I'm always in the guy's corner, man. He's my boy. So the first camp, we spent a whole lot of time together, and that was partly due because of COVID and the fact that he had the injury. So he was spending a lot of time with the PI, and that was the thing that really stands out to me is, every practice that we had, it was really revolved around that neck. So if he woke up that day and his neck injury was hurting, we'd have to change the way we were going to practice that day. So it was a very touch and go that whole camp. So I'm excited to see him healthy and get in there and go and compete.
Last question about this matchup. In regards to the preparation for the first fight, how much are you guys taking from that game plan and inserting it into this one? Like, is there anything that you can share from that first game plan that you don't think would show your hand too much in regards to the second matchup?
Well, I think there was a lot of great things that he did there. I think in the first matchup, I think he did a lot of really good things, especially dictating the pace and keeping his length. Yeah. And I think there's things in areas that he could have really added on. The one thing, I'll tell you, I was getting on his ass about was all the fucking spins. Like, bro, quit spinning.
It takes so much energy, right?
Yeah, like, it takes so much
unnecessary energy, and you're missing by a mile.
Exactly, and you're talking about, in my opinion, one of the guys with the best eyes. That's pure on vision. He's got great vision, and he understands movement and body language and things of that sort. So he's going to see those spins and stuff coming from a mile away. He really is. So let's be a little bit more efficient when it comes to the striking and things like that. But there's a lot of really good. I mean, I have notes on top of notes. Like so it's funny. Aljamain and I both watched the fight separately. Then we wrote our notes and critiqued everything, and then we sat and watched it together and then compared the notes. And we were right in line damn near with everything that we saw together. So, and then we sat and picked it apart. Hey, where did we like? What didn't we like? How was your day that day when we for fight day? Well, he didn't eat. He didn't do this. He didn't do this. So there's a lot of things I think that we have to make adjustments to. And fortunately for us, I mean, those aren't excuses. Those are just a second shot at this opportunity and try to do it the right way.
I love when you guys get that deep into it, and how can you not, right? Not just the gold on the line, but the amount of money that's on the line as well in terms of win and show money and all that type of stuff. So I'm glad that you guys are taking those extra precautions and those extra steps to be prepared. All right, now let's get to the fun part. I'm giving you your imaginary $100. Here we go, pushing it through the screen and passing on over to you. You got the odds for the main card coming up here. Who are you putting your $100 on at UFC 273?
This is a tough one because I think there's so much chalk on these favorites.
Yeah, the top
right.
Fight,
I mean, you're just laying it out there, and you go Chimaev. What are you going, $5? Right. So
yeah, you'd win $17.
$17. So I was trying to look for something a little bit more even in that regard. So the first fight that jumped out to me was the Mackenzie Dern-Tisha Torres fight. Now, Marina Rodriguez, she kind of laid the blueprint out on how to beat somebody like Mackenzie Dern, and that's use your length, stick and move. And somebody that does that very, very well is Tisha Torres with her movement and her cage control, understanding her geography. So that fight kind of jumped off the page. And then you're talking about Vic Pichel and then Mark Madsen jumping on the main card. Another very interesting fight. So you have the Roman Greco guy and Mark Madsen, and you have Pichel, who to me is a very, very underrated fighter at 155. Now, both guys have spent time at a Shrink Couture. I've got to work with both of them. I've actually cornered Mark Madsen in the past. So to me, where does the jump in gaps between the talent, the specialties of both guys? Mark Madsen obviously being the Greco guy. Where does his striking catch up to his grappling, right? Meaning if his grappling gets shut down and he's not able to wrestle, is his striking going to have, these leaps and bounds to be able to catch up with a guy like Vic Pichel if it stays on the feet? I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work out. And now Vic, what's his look like if off of his back? How does his get-up game look? How does his counter wrestling look and all that stuff? So with those two variables, for me, I got to lean on Mackenzie Dern and her jiu-jitsu. And I think the mistakes that she made in the Marina Rodriguez fight, I think that she's going to understand that she needs to close the distance, and she has a great overhand. And I see her piping that overhand. But what I'd like to see her do is connect her overhand to her body lock series. Throw that overhand and get her step around and get to the back. But what the overhand does, because she hits so hard, it commands a reaction, and that's getting the hands up. By doing that, that's going to open up the hips. So if she can combine her overhand into her takedowns, I think she has a pretty easy path to get to Tisha's back or to get to the ground. And I don't see Tisha getting back up once Mackenzie gets her down. So I got to go with Mackenzie Dern in this fight. I'm going to pick her by submission, and that's where my money's going.
There you go. So you got Mackenzie Dern. The line is a pick'em line, -110, meaning that the $100 will be turned into $90.91 if it cashes, and that should bring you up into second or even third place there as well if you're able to cash that. So yeah, awesome. Appreciate the time as always, Eric. I know you got a busy schedule. You had a hectic day yesterday. I appreciate you making the time today to do the recording as well. Any parting words for the viewers, for the fans? Anything you want to say?
No, this is my pleasure. We just got to catch up to James Krause. I'm sure he's in first place. I haven't even looked, but I'm sure James is in first.
James is in second. Mr. Cody Donovan is in first place because last time around he cashed on Bryce Mitchell at -150. Probably the best of the competition so far. So
this is like the coaches versus Krause. This is the way. But you know,
you guys just teaming up and going up against.
Fuck yeah, we got to get Krause out of there. Is there an elimination process? If this is like Big Brother, we got to get Krause out of there.
Hey, this is my plan, actually. At the end of the year, after the competition's done, the bottom 3 is getting eliminated, and I'm going to bring in 3 more coaches to take place. So,
smart. I love
see
it.
How it goes. I want to see.
You know us coaches, bro. We love to compete, so that's the best part. But I love Krause. That's my boy. I call him every week to find out what his picks are.
I love it. I love the friendly competition. That was the whole point of the show. People seem to really get behind it as well. So I appreciate that. All right, Eric, I'll let you go. Appreciate the time as always. Good luck on Mackenzie Dern this week. And even though I have a bet on T-shirt Taurus, it is what it is. It's fine. Good luck to you as well, my friend. And do you have anything this weekend? Sorry, you're not going down to Jacksonville, right?
No. I'm going to head out. I got San Jose next week. I go to spring break with the kids for a few days. Then I head out to Hawaii. I got Kai Kamaka and Rafion Stouts. Then it's back, and then we got all of our May lineup, our June lineup, and then July starting to get filled up now. So there's no off season for us, man. We got
enjoy the little bit of time that you're actually going to have off here. Enjoy the time with the kiddos and all that stuff. But yeah, again, appreciate you, and good luck on Mackenzie Dern. Take it easy, my friend.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, now that we got all the breakdowns out of the way, let's get into all 6 picks that every coach has chosen off of the main card for UFC 273. In first place, Cody Donovan is going to swing for the fences by taking the Korean Zombie at +500. In second place, James Krause is going with a little bit of a safer pick and taking Vince Pichel at great odds of -140. Santino will be hoping to take that second place spot if he's able to cash on his fighter that he's actually going to be cornering this weekend, as he's taking Korean Zombie at +500. Marc Montoya is going to be swinging for the fences as well, as he has chosen Gilbert Burns at +410. Eric Nicksick is trying to cash a sharp play here on Mackenzie Dern, who's coming in at -110. And as you'd expect with my guy Tyson Chartier, he's really trying to dig himself out of the hole, so he's taking the +350 shot on Aljamain Sterling. There you guys go, all 6 picks from all of the coaches, not to mention 3 of the coaches breaking down the title fights for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Please hit that like and subscribe. Make sure you guys follow all the coaches on their social media as well, all of which I have listed in the description below. And please drop your comments, drop your thoughts on the show, anything you want to see added, removed, changed. Please do let me know. I want this show to blow up. I know it has the potential to blow up, but all we need is for you guys to share it, you guys to like it, and you guys to comment it or comment on it so that it gets into the algorithm and we can start to get more eyeballs on this series. Appreciate you guys showing the love as always. Good luck on your bets this weekend, and keep your eyes tuned on my channel for much more content on UFC 273 for the rest of the week.